Next, board policies.
You have press packet 84. This is a preliminary review from the Policy Council. Attached you'll find our recommendations. We did not think there were really any controversial or any significant policies in the press packet. We obviously did not agree to the option on Policy 230 of having Mary Ann as the Secretary of the Board handling any PR function as it relates to the election process, so that will be something nice to get off of the district office plate. We agree with all the recommendations from IASB down on 7:190. There was one typo, so we did mark that adopted with district edits, and I struck the typo. I think there was a repeat of words. We also did not authorize the part of the policy on 7:190 that talks about the use of timeouts and physical restraints. Policy 8:95, parent involvement. We did not support the option of implementing Bring Your Parents to School Day. We have a scheduled parent-teacher conference. We also are in line with our policy of between a newsletter and our updates on our website for parents to communicate, and between department chairs and the building administration, there's more than ample opportunities if a parent wants to come in to speak to a specific teacher about a specific class or work through an issue with the administration and the teacher. So we are not in support of the Bring Your Parent to Work Day. Plus, we barely have room for 25 to 30 kids in all of our classes, let alone making seats available then for parents. So that was another issue.
Did we consider that we recently discussed whether parents really feel comfortable just being able to talk to the administration if there's issues, and whether, I mean, originally I looked at this history on that. Originally it was going to be a mandatory requirement, and then it was changed to be an optional. But I mean, does it help to give, I mean, if the parents want to see what's going on in the classroom, I mean, does it hurt to make something like that available to them?
On specific cases, sometimes we have, but that's not something we want to just open to the whole community and have anybody just come with their student. I'm not 100% sure on what's happened under Pam's leadership. I know when I was a principal, once or twice I would have it where a parent would ask to go and sit in with a class with a student with an IEP just to see how they were doing and get an understanding. But I don't think the intent necessarily behind it was to get people more comfortable in talking to the administration if they had concerns about teachers. I think it was just an opportunity to open the doors to the community to get them involved in the setting. So
I agree with you. So taking your last thought, it was an opportunity to get people involved.
Right.
And we decided we don't want to take the opportunity.
I can only speak for myself, and it was, my view was there were lots of opportunities as it was, and this seemed to be something that would either be not worth the disruption or detraction from the the academics.
I think it'd be also just a little bit of a logistical.
Yeah, that's.
Tim, I think you had a question on, was it
Well, I had a couple.
Fair Labor Standards Act?
The
Or
first
was it 5180?
The first question I had, because I only read them, on 6320, high
Oh,
school
okay.
proficiency.
Yes.
Do we allow 8th graders to come and
So
take
we do.
classes here?
We do. It does not happen very often. We will probably be having possibly one next year. It only happens if there's an extremely, extremely high score on a portion of the entrance exam, where we do an additional proficiency exam, which caused the building administration, especially Kristen and the one department chair, to look at this a little more. And that's what some of the recommended changes were. The idea of opening it up to 7th and 8th graders, there were some concerns about maturity issues, so
Sure.
that's why we're striking it to just make it 8th graders.
Right.
And then the last sentence about the student's grade in the course shall not be included in the student's grade point average. Again, we wanted to avoid, since we still currently have class rank, we wanted to avoid some of the hidden advantages that sometimes occur, like with band, and some of those things we've talked about in the past, so that your rank and your GPA should start when you're officially a freshman enrolled at as a full-time student at the high school. So that was our recommendation. The other issue that, when the policy was originally, what we could see as a parent, we could see, if we kept the original policy, a parent would say, hey, well, the level of geometry or pre-calc we're looking for at the elementary school isn't there, so we want the student to take it there, and then if the student's not prepared to gets a C or a D, they're gonna say we're punishing them for being an advanced student. So that's why we thought it'd be best to
That's fair
make that recommendation. Your next one, I thought, dealt with-
5180.
Yeah, and that's with the suspensions?
No, that's on the
Temporary illness.
the incapacity, the disability.
I had no problems with 5180 on your original recommendation to include the one sentence that unless the employee has an independent or a separate employment
Yeah.
contract.
Because that conflicts with it.
I don't think that was an issue. Ed, Mike, I don't
No,
know.
not at all. From my point of view.
And then the next one was on 5190. Again, it's a little nitpicky, but, licensed, the administrators are licensed, and anybody who drives a school bus has to be licensed by the state. So I know that you were trying to come
Yeah,
up
I
with a way
thought
to
the
define
intent was-
teachers, but.
I think it's with the teachers, and they changed it from certification to educational
Professional
license.
educator license.
Which, because they changed this
Right.
rule now.
So a school bus driver wouldn't be a professional educator license.
Yeah, down below it's okay, but the lead-in sentence is broader than what you're getting at when you put the list down below. You start with you start with pretty much anybody in the building.
What you're
And then you
saying is
narrow
the
it down.
professional educator license should be up in the intro.
Yes, I
think
would
that's-
suggest that. I didn't want to, rewrite it for you.
I'm okay with that change.
You see what I'm saying? The lead-in is it's much broader than the definition of a teacher.
Gotcha.
And I realize that's what the ISBA drafted, but.
Okay.
And then the next one was, and this came up, when we review them, we had this discussion when we were reviewing administrative agreements is, why don't we give the board the option to suspend an administrator without pay?
Tim, is this the same one, or?
No,
this
now
is
5240. On page 125.
125, okay.
Or at least the original. So, I don't know, I don't understand why we don't make it an option if it's allowed under state law.
I gotta wonder if it's because of the employment contracts.
Wow.
No, that's why I'm raising it, because the employment contract says our ability to lay off an administrator without pay or suspend is dependent on what our policy says. So if we say in the policy we cannot suspend an administrator without pay, then it carries into the agreement. It says we can't suspend them without pay.
Without a hearing, probably.
That was it.
Because then isn't the...
I think what we wanted to avoid was a hearing.
I thought the concern with the board was that if they choose to terminate...
No, that was a
That's
different
terminate,
issue.
right? Yeah, that's not suspension.
The administrative agreements say we can suspend an administrator without pay if the policy allows it, basically. Now we're being asked to approve the updated policy, and the policy specifically precludes that. So I'm asking the question, why? Because if we had a situation, or the board ever, and you could think back in the history whether the board might have wanted to have the ability to suspend an administrator without pay, the agreement would prohibit us because the policy prohibits it, and I don't understand why. If it's something that's legal, it seems like we should allow a board the option to make that choice.
Does that go to that side box how it says there's a difference in opinion between
Right.
attorneys
Yes.
on whether or not the superintendent should be able to suspend with or without pay?
Yeah, I don't think we spent a heck of a lot of time talking about it, Tim. I think that, I remember expressing one view, which was, suspending people with pay. If it's a bad thing, you're gonna act quickly anyway. If it's not a bad thing, you don't want them suspended without pay. And so I didn't feel strongly about it. I mean, I understand you wanting to have the flexibility, so I think whatever the full board wants to do makes sense. But I think in light of the fact that there was some question as to whether there is authority and could it be challenged, are we going to be buying off a lawsuit or some other challenge?
But again,
Yeah.
Ed, you do this advice all the time. If it allows you to do it and you think you're gonna get sued or it's
Right,
illegal,
then
you're
you
gonna
don't
say,
do it.
don't do it.
Right.
But if it says don't do it based on our agreements, we can't do it, whether it's legal or whether it's not legal. And I just don't
I don't feel strongly about it.
understand why we're putting it in. It seems to me you should allow for the flexibility in case the situation came up when it was a choice you wanted to make.
Mike?
Well, and didn't we discuss this with some of our contracts? And we
Yes.
had the attorney on the phone. So I think if we were consistent, we wouldn't keep that phrase.
I thought, going back to that, I thought that dealt with if we chose to end an employee's contract without cause.
We didn't
Right.
ask
We
the
didn't want to
attorney
have to
about
do it.
that.
Yeah, we didn't do any
Just had to do
questions
it.
with the
That was
attorney
a
with
different
suspension.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was all
Suspension.
termination of contracts
Yeah.
or with or without cause.
But
I could follow up with our attorney to see if there's any
Yeah, why don't we ask Todd?
legal perspective on why.
Because we're not
why
gonna
would this
approve these
policy-
today anyway.
Right.
No,
No.
Let's,
Yes, Todd.
that's all I
just for a
ask.
general policy,
Yeah.
why did they not put it in?
Exactly.
Okay.
And then the next one I had, question or comment I had was on 7180. And again, it
That's
follows.
page 131.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sorry, thanks, John. It follows up from the discussion we've had a few times when there's been considerations of expulsion, et cetera, and whether, whether we are sending a message to the families and to the students that, there's a nice, fair ability to come and make your grievance here. And, I just think the way it's written, it's not, the district will not punish anyone because he or she makes a complaint. And I used as an example, I took the language right out of our company's code of conduct, that it's more encouraging. It's like, we want you to come and report it, but, you understand that if you do make a false complaint, or if it's not in good faith, that you can be punished. So
With that, Tim, are you referring to parents or students here?
well,
Would
this,
that be a different policy, or do we have to?
Well, the first sentence said we are encouraging. You don't like the word punish?
yeah, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
like the way it's written.
Well, then maybe what we'll say is, typically the language would be there'll be no retaliation or repercussions, adverse repercussions, something like
Right.
that.
What page are you on?
I put
That's
some language, you can
131.
think about it.
Yeah.
The
I'm
top
sure
part?
you've written some of those yourself.
Yeah, I've written a
so-
lot of them. The no retaliation provision. Did you have language in your suggestions?
Yeah. It might be hard to read for.
We can look at that.
Yeah, I can come up with something.
So then, and then the next one, and Kevin, we talked about this too. We have this uniform grievance procedure, and we have the, bullying hotline. But if you look at the uniform grievance procedure, it's very legislative. It says you can make a complaint about these list of items, and it's like sexual harassment, discrimination based on, race or something like that. But we don't have, and again, I realize the ISBA put these together, but, we don't really just have a ability like most companies have now to just have a general place to call for, just if you have a concern or an issue you want to
I thought there
raise.
was just a general uniform grievance in column 2:260, something like that. General complaint manager?
Is that on this policy, Kevin?
No.
Tim, why don't I suggest this?
You can think about it.
Yeah, why don't we just make a note
To look at general
To
complaint.
go back, look and see if we feel we're covered, and if not, then maybe grab something.
That's fair enough.
You know, along those lines on our website, there is a bar there about bullying and, you know, registering the complaint. You know, perhaps, you know, if something happens in the school that a parent's concerned about,
That's
you know, they're going to go to the website, so maybe we should expand that along those lines about,
At least putting our uniform grievance procedure on there.
well,
So-
the process, if a parent has a concern about, say, anything that goes on in the school,
Goes down anywhere.
um,
I'm sorry, does it go further?
that's inappropriate, I should qualify that they have a way to at least contacting someone,
No, that's it then.
or how it should be done,
We can look at that.
yeah.
I think that was all of Mr. Walsh's questions on the 84.
The, I don't, you know, on page 133 on paragraph 9, where you're talking about, I have to get into the leading, Kevin. It's, I don't know, I gotta go all, it's the same policy.
This is the
on-
data.
On hand, you know, we've been reported data on you know, every year on, maybe twice a year on the discipline, et cetera, and how things are going, but this specifically says we're gonna get a report, the board will get the report, the results of the assessment. There's supposed to be an assessment done and recommendations how to enhance our bullying policy. I don't think that's been
Isn't
done.
bullying, I thought bullying is covered in the data that Pam reports out, specific incidents reported.
Right, and recidivism rate and so
Mhm.
forth,
Page what?
but,
No, I'm just talking on the data report that Pam does at the end of each semester specifically. There's a bullet
Yes,
point that
it's twice a
addresses
year.
bullying and how many incidents we had reported and
right.
what can either confirmed or issued consequences.
And then you talked about the strategies, program, procedures, and of how to enhance the effectiveness.
Yeah, I mean, we can, it's definitely, we can talk about the interventions we do
Okay.
and what the process is if you, yeah.
I would say we're pretty good at,
Yeah.
we may have to go a little more into detail, but I think.
In
Okay.
fact, that's one of the things the freshmen will be doing is an anti-bullying program tomorrow. But we can tell you what kinds of programs and how we track it and what's done. And, you know, longitudinally look at, since we instituted the programs, how we've had a decrease since we
Okay.
started the bullying hotline, you know, or reporting line. And, you know, of course, showing always cause and effect as far as what's helping a student can be difficult, but we have seen a decrease. We've seen, since we started, we've seen an increase in the amount of reporting and a decrease in the amount of actual incidents of recidivism.
Okay.
Because, you know, the reporting allows kids to come forward when they see that it's dealt with. And then if they're more common, we can talk about the processes, you know, more consistent with students who have issues with multiple kids. We can talk about the process with that. So that's no problem. We can give you a more thorough report at the end of the year.
The last one, just so, Kevin, when we talked earlier, that acceptable use policy is a mouthful.
A mouthful?
I just, you know.
Tim, what's this one
that's-
refer to?
That's the
same?
one that was
That's the next
rewritten by
agenda item.
Full body
Frantic. and-
cover.
you
Well,
know.
I think one thing is that in the edits you provided, that were on their general policy.
Right.
And then we provided the red line version, which I
Right.
already went through and made edits more efficient more user-friendly to RB. And one of the concerns, so I think we should, at first, we should try to maybe stick to just that, because we already went through with our attorney for a couple hours on which footnotes we should adopt and not adopt. I think you had a couple of general questions.
Well, again, I know you're going over that again, and that your policy council can look at it. I'm just saying, it's not an easy document for somebody to understand, which
Well,
then
the policy
makes it
council was
difficult to
concerned is if we
enforce.
can enforce it, do we
Yeah.
have enough manpower to enforce it?
Way too much.
Just something to consider. Or, you know, you can't enforce a policy if people don't understand.
Do you have, I wouldn't mind just taking a second to look at just if you had questions on what we already redlined out or added in.
Well, I looked So the comments I made weren't, because I did it in order, so I looked at the document without the changes, but then I looked at the changes you made, and I took any comments I had that you addressed in your changes, so I still think the comments are applied, they're not areas that you edited.
Well, I think
Again, you
it's,
can
I
just-
think it's,
We're not
I
gonna-
think it's very, very hard, and what the lawyers tried to do is to try to anticipate every possible thing that could happen. And when you try to do that, you get into trouble.
Right.
And, you know, when we were talking about it, you know, typically, when we do these kinds of policies, you know, what do you want to do? You want to make certain that people know what they can't do and what is prohibited.
Right.
And then you want to, you know, make sure they exercise good judgment in the business use. And this goes way beyond that.
We
What'd
need
you
a
think?
full-time person to police it. That's kind of what we
That's-
thought. How would,
Well, Kevin and I talked about one example. You know, the staff can't have their own personal software on their own device if they're hooked up or use them. And, you know, we just switched at our company last year. The company provided cell phones. Now we have to have our own, and they just give us a monthly. Now we have to have certain software, and if they needed to for a litigation purpose or whatever, they can get on a personal phone. But I can use it at work and use any
Right.
app I want to use, and I don't know why we would want to have a policy that the teachers will say, forget it, I won't, you know, provide me one.
Right.
I don't want to use it if that's the rule you have. That's what we told the company.
I
I'm
know
sure they're gonna do
one
it.
particular question you had is why we struck students out of anything with websites. And your common question that kept coming up was like, well, what if like the Clarion?
Right.
The whole point that we were trying to say to that is that there shouldn't be any a website that isn't supervised by a certified staff member or an employee.
But don't the
So-
students keep the site up to date?
They help maintain it, but it should, we want to make sure that it goes through
Okay.
the sponsor, checking to make sure they're not putting inappropriate content or using it inappropriately. So we want to put the onus on the employees who are getting a stipend to see that club that's running that website.
Okay.
That's why we took the students out. We're going to look at it some more. We're going to try to scale it down, but we wanted to get it in your hands. If anything, there might be some portions that we might be able to use for it and attach to our current policy and make it
Yeah,
smaller.
some of the stuff might be in your administrative procedure. It may
Right.
make sense, but,
I mean, there are good ideas in here, but
yeah.
too many.
It's an encyclopedia.
I think that's it.
there's a handful for 7:30 a.m.
Okay, let's see. Acceptable use. Any other questions or comments?
No?
New business?
No?
None. Okay, then we have matters for the closed session. Personnel?
Yeah,
Personnel, student discipline, litigation, sale or lease of property.
Do you have to do the visitors' comments again?
So far,
Okay.
he's on
You don't
the-
have to read
so
it
far he's
again,
on the
just-
schedule.
Open it up.
As on the schedule.
He's right there.
We have one guest here in person.
We don't say that.
Bob, any visitor comments? No comment. Okay.
Off the record or on the record?
Discussion items. Is that the requested things we do here, or?
Yeah, and I think the only one was just to make sure we remind board members to fill out their statement of economic interest.
I'll do a resolve that the Board of Education, Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois, enters closed session for the purpose of considering appointment, employment, or dismissal of employees, student discipline, sale or lease of property, and litigation.
Second.
Mary Ann?
Yes.
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 Okay, we'll go on to closed session.
Scholarship.